Good evening, I'm Bob Schieffer. Straight talk from the generals. Our top commander in Iraq admits the number of Iraqi battalions able to operate alone is not increasing, it is decreasing. We'll start there tonight on what is turning out to be another bad day in the war. Then we'll cover these stories.
I'm John Roberts at the White House. A new Chief Justice and new questions about who's next for the Supreme Court.
I'm John Blackstone. A month since Hurricane Katrina, a week since Rita, and the South is still reeling.
Fast and Furious. I'm Jerry Bowen with what's fueling the western fires.
Why Katrina may also go down as a cultural disaster. I'm Jim Acosta with Mississippi's lost historical treasures.
This is the CBS Evening News with Bob Schieffer.
We are putting Iraq first tonight because it's been another awful day in the war. There's news that 5 more American soldiers have been killed by a roadside bomb, and 60 Iraqis were killed and 70 more wounded by suicide car bombers. We'll get to that shortly, but we're starting on Capitol Hill, where our top generals had some depressing news today. The number of Iraqi battalions able to fight without U.S. support is not increasing, it's going down. Here's National Security Correspondent David Martin.
One of the keys to American withdrawal is for Iraqi troops to take over the fighting. But today's hearing of the Senate Armed Services Committee revealed that the number of Iraqi units capable of operating on their own has actually decreased.
Previous report was he had 3 battalions. Now we're down to 1 battalion.
Right, and things change in the battalions. I mean,
that would only be about 700 soldiers. But General George Casey, the senior commander in Iraq, insisted many more, roughly 20,000, can carry out operations backed up by American troops, and pointed out that in the recent assault on Tal Afar, Iraqi soldiers outnumbered Americans for the first time.
So, have we lost ground? Absolutely not.
President Bush, who met with Casey yesterday, has cited the buildup of Iraqi forces as one of the principal signs of progress.
Now the increasing number of more capable Iraqi troops has allowed us to better hold on to the cities we have taken from the terrorists.
But when committee members pressed Casey on when American troops can start coming home, the answers weren't reassuring.
The next 75 days are going to be critical in what happens after that.
2 months ago, he sounded much more confident.
I do believe we'll still be able to take some fairly substantial reductions after these elections in the spring and summer next year.
Today, despite repeated attempts to pin him down, Casey remained vague on when and how many troops might come home.
Are you planning on troop withdrawals for next year?
I just said that, Senator. Yes. I mean,
yes or no?
Yes, Senator. I do believe that the possibility for troop condition-based reductions of coalition forces it still exists in 2006.
Bob, Casey pointed out that the average insurgency lasts for 9 years, and he said there's no reason to believe the insurgency in Iraq will take any less time to deal with.
All right, thank you very much, David. More than 140 people, 13 of them members of the U.S. military, have been killed in Iraq over the past 4 days now. The 5 Army soldiers whose deaths were announced today were on a combat operation near Ramadi, and the 60 Iraqis whose deaths we mentioned earlier were the victims of 3 suicide car bombers in the mostly Shiite town of Balad, which is north of Baghdad. Laura Logan is in Baghdad again tonight. It was a bit shocking to us to hear the general confirm today that there's only 1 battalion that is able to stand on its own. You're there. What do you make of what he said?
The reality on the ground here is that if U.S. forces pulled out tomorrow, there wouldn't be any Iraqi battalion that could stand on its own without U.S. support, and that means everything from logistics to signals to heavy weapons to close air support. And the other big question mark is how significant is the penetration of the Iraqi security forces by the insurgents and by pro-Iranian militias, which raise huge questions over whether these forces can in fact be relied upon.
Well, you've been out with these troops in the field on operations. How would you evaluate them right now?
There certainly is a huge improvement over their ability a year ago as light infantry troops to lead the fight on the ground. But they can't do this without U.S. support. And it's very likely that you could still have embedded U.S. trainers here for the next 10 years. So people should expect that.
All right. Thank you very much, Laura. A federal judge today ordered the Defense Department to release more pictures of prisoner abuse at Iraq's Abu Ghraib prison. The ruling in a lawsuit brought by the American Civil Liberties Union involves 87 photos and 4 videotapes not yet seen by the public. The government is expected to appeal, which could delay any release for months. Now, today's other big story is expected. John G. Roberts was sworn in as the new Chief Justice after being confirmed by the Senate by a huge margin, 78-22. And who better to tell us about that than our own John Roberts?
It is one of the most important appointments a president can make. And today, President Bush stood by his man, sworn in as the 17th Chief Justice of the United States.
So help me God. So help me God.
The president made special mention of Roberts' son, Jack, who stole the show back in July at the nomination announcement.
We extend a special welcome to his wife, Jane, their daughter, Josie, and son, Jack. A fellow who's comfortable with the cameras.
Roberts himself couldn't resist joining in.
We found a way to get Jack into the committee room, introduced to the committee, and back out again without any serious crisis.
But on a more serious note, the conservative Chief Justice said he will remain faithful to the Constitution.
With the help of my colleagues, I can pass on to my children's generation a charter of self-government as strong and as vibrant as the one that Chief Justice Rehnquist passed on to us.
Now the attention turns to who's next to fill the critical swing seat being vacated by Sandra Day O'Connor. Consultants to the White House say, don't expect another O'Connor.
I think at the end of the day, we're going to see a conservative appointed to the court for the seat of Justice O'Connor. And that is going to shift the balance in the Supreme Court. But that's the prerogative of the president.
And it's the prerogative of the Democrats, who see this nomination as even more important than Chief Justice to fight that notion.
This is a time when America is divided. If there was ever a time when we needed a consensus nominee, it is now.
They're warning President Bush that he and the Republican Party don't have the same strength they did when Roberts was nominated. Some potential nominees have even drawn threats of a filibuster. The White House doesn't seem worried.
Well, they were saying that before, and it didn't happen.
Whomever the nominee is, they got some support from Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who said John Roberts was correct to not answer a lot of questions posed to him by the Judiciary Committee. She says it's not appropriate for a nominee to talk about how they would rule in a case that may come before the court. Bob?
Thank you very much, John. So what will the president be thinking about as he decides who should be nominated to fill the next vacancy? Our political correspondent Gloria Borges on Capitol Hill tonight. Gloria, have you seen any clues so far about which way the president's going to go on this?
I think we have seen some clues, Bob. The president has talked an awful lot about the importance of diversity, whether that's a minority or whether that's a woman. We also know his wife and Justice O'Connor have said that they'd like to see a woman in this seat. And the president has also said that he's looking outside the appellate courts, that perhaps he would appoint somebody who is not currently serving as a judge. And lots of people are speculating he could go to his own White House lawyer, who happens to be a woman.
But it's going to be hard any way he goes, because there's a downside as well as an upside to any appointment for him now, politically.
It's very difficult for him. He's got a tough choice to make. Does he go with a Roberts-like nomination that gets 22 Democratic votes again, or does he go with his conservative base? Conservatives are telling people at the White House, look, this is a fight you ought to want to have. You need to change the topic now from the hurricane, from ethics, from gasoline lines, from the war in Iraq. How about talking about your woman nominee to the Supreme Court? That's what conservatives are telling the White House. Whether they will listen, we don't know.
Okay, thank you, Gloria. In New Orleans today, some business owners took the mayor up on his call to return to selected neighborhoods to help the city get back on its feet. But after those 2 hurricanes in just a month, the communities throughout the Gulf Coast states are struggling day to day. Here's John Blackstone.
With no electricity, air conditioning, or running water, Wilma Burns is trying to stay cool. For her daughter-in-law, though, it's all becoming too much.
Every time I talk about it, I want to cry, and so I just keep myself busy.
All across the South, the last month has been hurricane hell, smacked first by Katrina, then Rita, then a week of record-breaking heat.
Have you slept in 110-degree weather lately? you know, and now my kids are in Crosby having to start school over there because I can't get anybody to help me out to find some place for us to go here.
Together, the hurricanes have driven well over 1 million people from their homes. The Outhouse family has been living out of their pickup truck for a week.
We got 3 children, and they've been complaining and griping, and we've been at each other's throats the whole time.
Many of the displaced are also jobless. Latest figures show 279,000 are out of work because of Katrina, and more job losses from both hurricanes are expected. Closed refineries are fueling higher prices and fears of shortages. In Georgia, truckers spend hundreds filling their rigs. Ray Houston worries about getting diesel at any price.
Well, I don't want to get caught with that now, because some days they say it's going to be a shortage.
Here in Houston, there's growing concern about the cost of housing some 150,000 evacuees from New Orleans. The city's healthcare system alone is already out millions.
Houston healthcare system stepped up to the plate when we needed to, and I hope that it will get the help that it needs and continue to do it and be available next time.
Katrina evacuees are still living in Houston hotels.
You'd like to get back home again?
Yeah. Yes. Real bad.
But amidst the hardship, there are tales of generosity, like the man who saw Chelsea Davis and her 7-week-old daughter in the hotel elevator.
And he just put his hand in his pocket and gave me all the money he had. And I just started crying and told him thank you, because nobody has never done that for me.
It gave her hope there's a brighter future after this month of hurricanes. John Blackstone, CBS News, Houston.
And coming up next, Katrina's horror stories will separate the rumor from the reality in tonight's Inside Story. But first, more faces of the missing from the hurricane. Raheem Marshall is about 5 years old, has black hair, brown eyes, last seen in New Orleans, as was his sister, Sanile Marshall. She's about 18, 5'5", 145 pounds. And Alexander Ellis is about 5 years old. He disappeared in Metairie, Louisiana. If you have any information, please call 1-800-THE-LOST or go to missingkids.com. Officials in Louisiana today raised the death toll from Hurricane Katrina. They now say 923 people were killed in the state. That is still far from the 10,000 the mayor of New Orleans once predicted. A lot of speculation, a lot of rumor and reports in the immediate aftermath of the storm are turning out now to be flat wrong. Sharon Alfonsi now with tonight's Inside Story.
In the hours after Katrina hit, New Orleans was a city that seemed to be overwhelmed with crime and residents who were out of control. Stories of rape and murder spread inside the dark corridors of the Superdome, rumors that culminated with confirmation from city officials.
Our police officers have been in gun battles, running out of ammunition.
On the Oprah Winfrey Show, New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin fueled the country's worst fears.
There are people standing out there watching dead bodies, watching hooligans killing people, raping people.
But now, a month later, police are re-examining those reports, and they say they're simply not true. National Guard officials were called here to the Dome and told there were 200 bodies inside, including children with their throats slit. But when they got here, they found just 6 bodies. So you gave them 6 bodies, not 200.
We did, no, 6.
Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Barone was in charge of security at the Superdome. He said there was some fighting, but not the kind of horrifying violence that was widely reported.
You were here pretty much 24/7 for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you may have seen fights, but you said you never saw rapes.
No.
Never saw murder.
No, not once.
State health officials say 6 bodies were recovered from inside the dome, 4 from outside.
None of those, to my knowledge, are homicide victims.
And none were children. Still, those rumors may have hurt evacuees anyway. Relief workers were told not to respond to cries for help from the convention center because it was simply too dangerous. And while some police struggled to regain control of the city, investigators are now looking into whether others participated in the looting. A Times-Picayune reporter took these pictures of police taking DVDs from a local Walmart. Police announced today 4 officers have already been suspended. New Orleans now trying to clean up its city and its reputation. Sharon Alfonsi, CBS News, New Orleans.
The hospital chain founded by Senator Bill Frist's family said today that the Securities and Exchange Commission has opened a formal investigation of the company. HCA officers gave investors a rosy picture of the company, even as they were dumping millions of dollars of their own stock before the price plunged. Frist, the Senate Republican leader, sold his HCA stock before the plunge, but he denies that he had any inside information. The SEC is investigating him as well. Still ahead, western wildfires. This one in Southern California got 10 times bigger today and threatened multi-million-dollar homes. In California today, Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger did what he said he would do. He vetoed a bill that would have made same-sex marriage legal in the state. Schwarzenegger said the issue should be decided by the voters or the courts. While most of us have been focused on hurricanes, wildfire season has suddenly opened again in the west with a fast-moving fire in Southern California. It raced through more than 17,000 acres of foothills and ridges around Chatsworth, threatening residents and dozens of expensive homes. Here is Jerry Boyne.
It's the perfect firestorm raging northwest of Los Angeles, the biggest of 4 fires in Southern California, fanned by Santa Ana winds and feeding on the heavy brush that followed last winter's near-record rains.
They're flying through the embers, through the smoke, through the fire.
So threatening to canyon homes that water-dropping helicopters worked through the night, an operation usually avoided for safety reasons. And through the night, ember showers spread the blaze through the rugged horse country, forcing 450 people to evacuate.
I can't let anybody in right now unless you're evacuating livestock.
Keeping homeowners from reaching home.
I just bought a house 2 months ago. They promised me there's never any fires here for 30 years. And now I'm trying to go home and I'm not allowed home.
By daylight, 3,000 firefighters were on the line, and the loss was amazingly small. One industrial building where rocket engines were designed during the Cold War, and one house. On the Katrina scale of natural disasters, it doesn't even register, unless it's your house that's in danger.
Caught fire while I was inside unloading as much stuff as I could. I could see the flames behind the house and then hear the windows cracking.
Katrina has changed lives here, too.
Home can always be replaced. We have insurance. You know, life is what matters most.
And in another lesson from Katrina, FEMA has responded very quickly here, announcing it will pay up to 75% of the cost of fighting these fires, which began only yesterday. Bob?
Thank you, Jerry. Next on CBS, the lost treasures of Mississippi, classic homes that survived war and the passage of time, but fell to Katrina. And finally tonight, Hurricane Katrina took hundreds of lives and caused billions of dollars in damage. But as people have come back to the coast, they've discovered the hurricane also took with it a lot of history. Jim Acosta reports.
In the mountains of debris piling up in Mississippi are some of this state's greatest treasures, literally consigned to the ash heap of history. All along the Gulf Coast, mansion after glorious mansion lies in ruins. Like this home, which predates the Civil War. All that's left is the palm tree. Another antebellum gem sits beneath the casino barge.
The storm was truly a monster. It just ripped off the front porch and just scattered it.
Beauvoir, the last home of Confederate President Jefferson Davis, survived the Civil War, but lost the Battle of Katrina.
Just literally my mouth was just hanging open because I just couldn't believe it.
The museum's director, Patrick Hotard, spends his days digging through the rubble, salvaging artifacts like this Confederate bullet or mini ball.
That's an example of sort of the small items that we have to look for amongst all this rubble and debris. It's extremely trying on the soul.
Beauvoir's rebel uniforms and rifles are drying out inside a climate-controlled facility. With all of this devastation, Katrina herself has made American history, leaving the South with its largest reconstruction project since the Reconstruction.
We had a garden.
Also wiped out by a runaway casino barge was this house built by Biloxi's freed slaves.
So it just took my heart.
The Pleasant Reed home was one of the region's only links to its African-American heritage.
But that history, that piece of history, has been lost.
It's been lost, but it's still in our hearts and in our minds.
James Crowell, a museum board member, pledges all of it will be rebuilt.
And this was a dream that the community had, and we cannot let that dream die. just because of this catastrophe.
Now, the state with such a turbulent history has a common dream.
And years from now, people will be able to come back to this site and see the house, and they'll say, this is like how I remembered it.
Making sure Mississippi's rich past has a future. Jim Acosta, CBS News, Biloxi.
And that's the news. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News in New York. Good night.
For news 24 hours a day, click on CBSNews.com. Brought to you in part by Walmart, working together with local suppliers to bring your community local goods, job opportunities, and low prices.